Hey everybody, hi, it's Guinevere, and today is a couple different things. But first and foremost, it's story time. And I promised you guys I would do story time every now and then, and I feel like it has a lot of value because a lot of the stories I've experienced is kind of an introduction to a lot of the ins and outs of mysticism in general, because I've been on this journey for so long. Now, a couple of things. I wanted to say thank you to the people who've been subscribing and supporting me by writing comments and liking my content. If you haven't already, please subscribe and support my channel and hit the bell icon. I'm really looking forward to growing my crowd and hopefully dispensing a lot more readings, a lot more information, and maybe helping you get through the hard times with me. So, with that being said, this is what the story is about. Now, I'm sure most of you have heard about the ancient crystal skulls. At some point or another, it's probably been brought up. If not, you can always put this on pause and Google ancient crystal skulls or the stories behind the crystal skulls, which is also why, by the way, I have beautiful skeleton hands in my hair. So, I'm going to take you on the Wayback Machine. This requires going backwards in time and entering the trust. I'm going to use the term the sacred trust of what happens when you have a child medium. You can call it indigo child or spiritual child on your hands, because a lot of the information that's channeled doesn't necessarily come once and then never again. It comes as a steady inflow, and a lot involves trust. So, going back on the Wayback Machine, I believe I'm guessing right now, because I'm like trying to pinpoint what you're watching me do right now is going back in time to what class was I in when I had the vision. You see, I was in high school, and it wasn't uncommon for me to have visions in high school. If the teacher droned on or carried on for a little too long, or the lesson plan wasn't engaging enough, it was not uncommon for me to spontaneously trance out. So with that being said, I did remember what class I was in, and I remember the information. So here's the deal. I think it was maybe the night before there had been an episode on TV about one of the ancient crystal skulls, and I had taken it in and I felt the impact of it. I wasn't really certain about what I thought about it or whether or not I believed that these ancient crystal skulls were actually ancient, or whether they're more a modern curiosity or what have you. Okay. So even at the age of 16, I was willing to listen to information, take it in, absorb it, be interested in it, but still question, which is a nice and healthy thing to do. So if you're the type of person who is interested and engaged, but you still want to question things, that is fantastic. Being able to question things is a beautiful set point in your mind. Now, do keep in mind there's a difference between deciding you don't believe something without any proof, without any further research. And so please, if you're feeling skeptical about anything and you really actually want to find out, do the proper research. Don't just try and do a quickie and get your answer in 5 minutes, because it's rarely like that. So here I am in my science class, and I have zoned out and I have gone way far out there. And I have a vision, and the vision explains to me that I would be a keeper of a crystal skull. Now, as that vision unfolded and told me I'd be a keeper of a crystal skull, and that was actually of importance, and that it was something that would be an honor, and that I needed to take it quite seriously when the day finally did come, I started interacting with, in other words, dialoguing with the vision itself. Now, if you guys find yourself dialoguing with visions or dialoguing with your internal voice or whatever, that's also fine, and that is also good. And the dialogue I had was, well, at the time, I knew of only one, and I was like, well, I don't think that one will be in my hands, so it doesn't seem feasible unless some sort of crazy events were to take place and that were to end up in my hands. And the vision said, no, you will not be in contact with that. And this is where it got interesting. This is why I'm even telling you the crystal skull story. What became interesting is the vision, again, the vision was dialoguing with me. Maybe it was a spirit guide dialoguing with me after I'd gone and tranced out. But it had explained that I would be a keeper of a new era of ancient crystal skull. That it wasn't going to be the old guard or the old dudes. I'm using the term dudes. It was going to be attached, connected, and linked to that history like lineage. And it didn't really make a lot of sense to me. And whenever I get something that doesn't make sense, I recognize the vision for what it is. I sit on it. I don't throw it away just because it doesn't make sense. I just sit on it and go, well, we'll see. Now, as the years progressed, every now and then another ancient crystal skull story would come up and I would read up on it. And that's when I discovered, over a course of roughly, we'll say from 16 years old till 30 years old, I'd found out that there was 13 ancient crystal skulls, that there was 13 skull holders, and that some of them would go on tour and let people meditate with these skulls and make that connection, and that there was mystical experiences taking place. And I'm going to use the term downloads. There was downloads of energy taking place. And so that was very intriguing to me as well. By the time I hit the later years, and I had forgotten all about the ancient crystal skull as a story, I had moved to Arizona and suddenly remembered. And that's when I went, I think I'm just supposed to go ahead and get a crystal skull and initiate it into the process. Maybe I've been going about this the wrong way entirely, and maybe it's just about getting a crystal skull and meditating with it and calling in consciousness. Because at that point in time, I'd already learned that you could program crystalline structures and call in different forces or sources to empower that structure that you're working with. So I went down to Sedona. Don't be surprised or shocked about that. It just was a natural, course of, all the crystals down there. There was bound to be a crystal skull. And I figured in the middle of Sedona's red rock vortex, it would probably be pretty decent. So I went in search of. Every single time I would find a skull, there would be some sort of issue I would have with it. Whether there was a black spot in one of the eyes, or whether there was a black spot somewhere in one of the lobes. And to me, the black spots were symbolic of a struggle that would happen later. Like maybe by taking this skull, I was taking on the lesson or the course of working with a left eye issue. Or by taking this skull, that cloudy spot in the right lobe could mean something to me later. So I was being quite forensic about the process. And I did not find any crystal skull. And then I started looking for crystal skulls online. Nothing was calling my name. And then I decided, okay, I'm not gonna do this. I'm not going to go find a crystal skull, and I put it away again. So as you can see, as I'm telling you the story, we're going from a 16-year-old to a 40-year-old who went in search of and was ready to just rock and roll with what she found, and still was willing to take a vision, take a circumstance and store it for later or for never. Because there's a humbleness that comes with doing these kinds of works. You have to be willing to absorb information and be available to it, and also be willing to put it to the side until it actually speaks to you. And it wasn't speaking to me. So fast forward, I moved to Asheville, North Carolina, a very, very beautiful town in a wonderful state that I've learned to appreciate very deeply. The North Carolinians are lovely people. And I was here for, I would say, a month maybe. And I was walking through a shopping mall. It's called the Grove Arcade. It's not really so much a mall as a small shops that's very, very charming. And I see a crystal skull in the display that's facing out from the store, and my heart stops. It was the first moment that I'd felt consciousness coming from a crystal skull. And when I was looking for the crystal skulls in Sedona, they were just beautiful, well-carved pieces of gem. But this grabbed me, stopped me in my tracks. My heart skipped a beat, and I was in wonderment. I entered the shop and immediately asked the woman who worked there if she could get me the crystal skull from the window. She says in a very friendly, sweet way, as a kind of like a heads up warning. She's like, it's kind of expensive. And I said, it's okay, I need to see it. So she gets it from the window and she puts it on a black velvet pad in front of me. And I'm looking at this crystal skull, and it's speaking to me. It's loud and clear and beautiful, and I'm picking it up and I'm looking it into its eyes and I'm holding it and I'm blown away, and I can't stop talking about how conscious this skull is. And she goes, oh, well, we've got some more. And I'm like, oh, no, I don't need to see. I don't need to see some more. She goes, no, really. I mean, we've got some others. And she goes and she pulls two more from the case and put it next to this one skull. And to my shock, the other two are also talking. Now I'm taken aback. I've got 3 conscious skulls in front of me. I have no idea why they're conscious, why they're chatting up a storm, only that it's happened. And now I'm understanding that there's been an activation that's taken with these crystal skulls. And as I'm basically talking to her, talking to myself, mumbling in fascination. And she goes, oh, well, you're probably picking up on, now remember, she didn't know me, so she didn't know if I was just a crazy person, but she also knew more about these skulls than I realized. She said, oh, if you're picking up on something unusual, it's probably because these are maxified skulls. Now that's got me thrown for a loop. And I go, maxified? What does maxified mean? And she said, well, last month, we had this woman come into town and she had the ancient crystal skull Max with her. And so we set up these skulls in a grid with Max. So Max was in the center of the grid and these skulls that are in this shop surrounded Max. And when she said that, I was mind blown. And I was like, oh my God, it makes sense. Max coded the skulls. Okay, so now I realize what that vision was about at 16 years old, about the new wave of ancient crystal skulls. And it occurred to me that each person who would be obtaining one of these skulls from this shop would be a lineage holder of a very ancient wisdom society and would be getting downloads from their skull, and probably the skulls talk to each other, I'm guessing. I'm guessing they're best buds, I'm just going to say. So I'm going to introduce you to mine, and then I'm going to tell you a little bit about him. So this is him. If you get something, a feeling, an energy, a download, a connection, it is strong enough to pass through this medium to you. If he wants to have a word, he will have a word. I am not in charge of him. I am just a keeper of him. But this is him. He is absolutely beautiful. And yeah, he was not inexpensive, but he was worth it. He's really beautifully carved. He was sent to master carvers. Excuse me. He was sent to master carvers and they knew what they were doing. And then he sat with Max. So he, by the way, the one that I finally did take home with me was the second skull I looked at. The one that was in the window that I wanted equally as bad was not in the end the loudest speaker. So I bring him home and I know nothing about him, only that he is in fact activated, and I now know that I have to get to know him. I have to learn what happened. What did Max pass on to this brand new skull? So I sat down in my meditation space and I held the skull up and I looked it into the eyes and I said, so tell me who you are. And the skull said, you're not ready. Now, that was a hard one for me. I don't particularly like to be told that I'm not ready for anything. And I'm sure you all can agree with me that if somebody tells you you're not ready for something when you feel like you're ready for something, it can feel like quite a blow. And I said, okay, fine. We'll have it your way. I'm putting you on my altar, but I'm just letting you know I'm not terribly patient and I will be checking in frequently. So I put him on the altar and I'm going to say conservatively 2 weeks passed. And I picked him back up off the altar and I said, okay, so tell me who you are. And he said, you're not ready. And I said, oh, come on. And I put him back down on my altar. I come back again. I'm going to say conservatively 2 weeks later. I told him I was going to be a pest. Keep in mind, I did in fact inform him I would be a pest. I am that student. If I'm going to be your student, I will pester you for the information. It's one of the reasons why I'm good at what I do. It's because I don't let go. So 2 weeks later, I say, tell me who you are. And he says, you're not ready, but take me with you to your bath, because I was about to take a bath. And I was like, oh, so we got some pervy energy going on here, huh? I'm being sassy with a skull. That's right. You heard me. If you're laughing, it's fine. It's okay if you want to laugh. It's fine. I laugh. So I take him into my bathroom with me and I prop him up on the edge of the tub and I sit there and I soak and I listen to beautiful music. And then after I was done, I say, okay, so who are you? And he said, you're not ready yet. I just wanted to hang out with you and be part of this process. And I said, okay, fine. Now we move forward. It's been at least a month and a half, maybe 2 months, and it's the full moon. And I'm not putting full moon and crystal skull and my insistence together, but regardless, that is the case. And I walk over to the skull and I pick him up. I'm like, okay, so who are you? And he said, okay, are you ready? And he said, oh, yeah, I'm ready. And I put the skull over my heart, facing me. and boom. It was literally that quick. There wasn't a minute that passed. It was the second the skull was on over my heart. He took me through time and space to the very first memory when I was an infant of when I was traumatized by somebody. Now I understood why he said I wasn't ready. Because here I am experiencing this replay of an innocent child unable to really speak or to ask for help or assistance being abused by a very upset and maybe slightly unhinged adult. Because just because babies are beautiful doesn't mean the adults who tend to them are. Now, when he took me to this space in time, he showed me the experience, so I had a remembering of the experience and the helplessness of the experience. And then he showed me the experience of the other person, like through their eyes. And I was able to see the trauma that led to the moment where they were willing and able to traumatize a child. And when I saw that trauma and I was able to experience the full circuit of it, I found myself forgiving that person for harming me. As soon as I forgave that person for harming me, boom, I was at the next major point where somebody traumatized me. Let's just say I was 4 years old and it was extreme and I was crying and all the emotions that go along with it. And again, I was shown the exact circumstance where the betrayal had happened to my heart and my being, and then what the other person was experiencing. And by the end of that experience, I forgave that person. Now, Zadkiel kept doing this, kept bouncing me from one major experience to the next major experience. And it was never the minor stuff. We all get our feelings hurt. That's normal. But major experiences is when somebody you trust deeply traumatizes you by causing you harm, which is a very, very tough one. So I was led throughout time and space, dropped in to all these moments that had caused me trauma and had caused me pain. And at the end of every single one of those circumstances, I had said, I forgive you to the other person. I forgive you. I'm sorry that you had been put through this pain, this suffering, and I forgive you. Until finally Zadkiel came to the present moment, and I'd literally gone through the whole experience. By the time I was at the present moment, I was no longer in this state of spontaneous. I was not in control of this ride. In fact, I kept saying, do we have to do them all? Can't we come back? And he said, you said you were ready. So he actually, like a very, very powerful teacher, took me through the whole process. And it was tough, but, I'd already experienced the trauma. It was just hidden. It had been lost. We lose our traumas in memory. We don't remember who caused us harm or who started the process of us not trusting each other. But he managed to get me through it all, and I was fine. I did not mentally snap. And now I'm in the present moment, and I'm looking at the skull. My eyes are open again, and I'm looking at the skull on my chest, and I'm like, okay, you just took me through this intense process. Who are you? And he said, my name is Zadkiel. And I said, Zadkiel. And I kind of recoiled a little. Now, the reason why I recoiled a little is because the feminine in me, who'd experienced primary harm at the hands of men who'd mistreated or mishandled me, wanted the skull so bad to be female. I just wanted that skull to be a goddess. I wanted that skull to tell me the name Isis or Heket or whatever. I just wanted it to be female. It made me feel more comfortable. So having him announce himself to me as male caused me to feel a little bit pulled back. And I said, does it have to be Zadkiel? And he said, that is my name. I am Zadkiel. You have achieved me. I am your skull. And I said, well, I think you understand why I'm having some difficulty with this, right? That I would prefer you to be feminine. And he said, I know what you prefer, but what you need is for me to be masculine. Can't even make this stuff up. And I'm like, okay. And he said, because you need that healing. You need a sacred masculine to hold sacred space and magic, and you need to work with me. Because this is the way back. And of course it was logical. And of course it made sense. And I said, okay, fine. You're a man and your name is Zadkiel. So the next morning, since I knew nothing about Zadkiel personally, I do know about fairly a lot of angels. And I knew Zadkiel was an angel name. So the next morning I decided I was going to look up Zadkiel. So I go to my angel encyclopedia, which I bought ages and ages ago for whenever I want to work specifically one-on-one with angels and I need to do my research. So if they're not ones I know, or if it's a specific situation that needs my attention and I don't really know which angel I should acquire to do the work with, I'll go to this encyclopedia. So I flipped on through and I find Zadkiel. And Zadkiel, first and foremost, is the angel of forgiveness. It's wonderful when you know that you're not functioning from memory, that I'd never read it before. I'd never done a forgiveness spell, so I'd never had a need to go to this part of the book that I knew of consciously. I mean, obviously, we don't think about this as a regular thing unless we're in the middle of being presently offended by somebody working on forgiveness. So it was interesting because forgiveness was his primary focus. Secondary behind forgiveness was compassion. And after compassion was magic. And then I realized the exact order was meaningful, because if you could not first forgive and then be in a state of compassion, you couldn't properly wield magic, or at least you couldn't do it from a morally correct space. So magic is given to those who can forgive, right? Real magic, real powerful. We're not talking about a little spell where you cause somebody to get an itchy foot. We're talking about the big stuff. We're talking about shifting time and space, maybe. We're talking about portal and dimensional manifestation kind of stuff. It gets big. The more you go down the rabbit hole, Alice in Wonderland, and you Mad Hatters out there, the farther it goes. Just when you think you've reached the top, there's farther to go. Just when you think you found the bottom, there's farther to go. Okay? So Zadkiel and I have been working with each other now for quite a few years. And whenever I know somebody who needs to heal and go through a forgiveness process, I pull him out, and he does the same thing with them that he did with me. He literally takes them with him. A lot of them don't have any recollection. They just go into a trance, and then I wait for them to come back. And it's a fascinating thing to be the caretaker of such a powerful object, to know that as I work with other people and they work with him, that as his caretaker, as his hostess, really, that I'm really there to caretake the other person because they're having a personal experience that he's taking them through. Now, he's not alone. He's actually got a partner. It was, I think, a year later that I got him a girlfriend, and her name is Muriel, and that will be a story for later. But I'm going to let you see Zadkiel again, because you may have something in your life that you feel like you need to heal or forgive or have compassion toward. Obviously, through this medium, I doubt he's going to put you into a trance, and it would be really funny if I get some comments below about being spontaneously put into a trance. But I am going to sing Ho'oponopono as I hold him up to you. Now, do keep in mind, I am not a professional singer. If my voice is irritating to you, I am not going to be offended if you decide that this is the moment you want to steer away. I'm also not the worst singer either. But I sing in the same way when I explain to you guys that I do ceremonial makeup, that I do makeup in the energy of what am I willing to manifest or bring into being at this time. It's the same with song or any kind of ceremony I do. I do it straight from the core, straight from the heart, and straight from spirit, and I let the rest have its time. So here we go. I'm going to hold them up. I'm obviously singing Ho'oponopono, and I would love very much for you to let that song take you to where you need the healing most. And if you can stay with me through it, continue to look at Zadkiel while I sing for you, and allow that process to take place. And have some trust. Sometimes it doesn't make sense right away, as you know that my story unfolded over a course of decades. And I am very blessed to be able to bring Zadkiel to you now. Thank you. Here we go. Ho'oponopono, 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 Ho'oponopono. I'm so sorry. I love you. I'm so sorry. I love you. Please forgive me. I thank you. Ho'oponopono. 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 I'm so sorry. I love you. Please forgive me. I thank you. I'm so sorry. I love you. Please forgive me. I thank you. Ho'oponopono. 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 I'm so sorry. I love you. Please forgive me. I thank you. I'm so sorry. I love you. Please forgive me. I thank you. Thank you, you guys. I hope that brought some peace to you. And if there's something you need to have forgiven, please make sure to focus on that. And thank you to the Hawaiian elders who brought Ho'oponopono into my life. I hope you all have the most blessed day and that you found humor and comfort in story time today. And there will be more story time to come. I promised you an alien story because I've been talking about aliens. It's coming. Okay? Thank you guys. Bye-bye.